Hi, I'm Julie, and welcome back to the YMyHealth Podcast. This is another special episode for Colorectal Cancer Awareness Month with Fight CRC and Call on Congress. Today, I'm here with Bill Thach.
Tut.
Did I pronounce it right?
Tut.
Tut. And you are a colorectal cancer survivor and also a research advocate. Is that correct?
Correct.
Excellent. And today, we're going to be talking about ultra-processed foods and nutrition and some of the kind of news and studies that have come out around that. But before we get started there, I just wanted to see how you came to being interested in research and becoming a research advocate.
So I came to research advocacy mainly as a self-interested journey, just because I am a rare subtype of colorectal cancer called neuroendocrine carcinoma. I've been through 9 lines of treatment,
Wow.
and there's really no end in sight. And I constantly have to keep abreast of what new drugs are out there, as well as potential therapies that I may be a candidate for, just so that I could keep myself in the best interest of my survival.
Absolutely. Yeah. And what drew your attention specifically around ultra processed foods?
Um, I tried to look at cancer as an overall picture, just because I feel that part part of my diagnosis came from a genetic mutation. In addition to that, I had a good amount of time when I was sitting in the hospital bed or in treatment where I was reflecting back on my life in terms of, okay, how did I live my life? How did I eat? My lifestyle, my choices that I made to just basically put myself in this situation where I shouldn't be doing that, just because you're basically playing that victim mentality and everything. But it also allowed me to really look at myself as well as my overall lifestyle, where what modifications can I make that would be the best choice for me to be resilient at the same time, keep my body and mind as healthy as possible to endure all the treatments that I've been through.
Yeah. And when you see headlines about ultra processed foods and cancer, what is your first reaction?
Um, what is the intention behind the message? And then at the same time, is there any company behind that newscast? Just because
Mhm.
every company out there is self-interested,
Yeah.
regardless if it's a drug company, a food company, a supplement company, or even an influencer of any kind. They are self-interested in their own ways. And sometimes you have to question, at the same time, have a healthy level of skepticism
Sure.
in terms of, should I be believing the words that is coming out of this individual's mouth that is representing that product, company, or individual?
Yeah. And how do you define ultra processed foods?
So an ultra processed food to me is a raw ingredient that's basically broken down and combined with fat, salt, and sugar and made ultra palatable. Uh,
Mm.
it is a food that is not in raw form, but basically just enhanced to a point where the consumer enjoys the taste, but continues to consume it because they enjoy that.
Yeah. I, if I'm being honest, I was aware of ultra processed foods, but I never really thought about what they were until we decided to come and do this podcast episode. And so I did a little online research in advance. And so Nova classifies it as anything that has 5 or more ingredients. And just like you said, it's got some kind of additives, preservatives, color, something that makes it more palatable, more engaging, more addicting. And I think it's, was there anything that you were surprised about that gets categorized as ultra processed foods? Because there's a lot.
Um, the foods that I cook in general,
Yeah.
just because you don't think it's processed, but it is to a certain extent processed. And then with with the Nova definition, when you're basically adding 5 or more ingredients, now it's ultra processed.
Yeah.
That's what I was surprised about, because what I would think is ultra processed food is a candy bar, a
Totally.
granola bar, cereal, things like fast food, things like that. But when I'm looking at the true definition of it, a lot of the practically almost everything we eat is ultra processed to a certain degree.
Yeah.
But at the same time, unless you're one of those types that is just eating raw food, which is probably less than 0.00001% of the world,
Yeah.
it's impossible.
Yeah. Yeah. There's so much, especially here in the US,
Mhm.
of foods that are just so processed. And when you read studies linking ultra processed foods to cancer, what are you looking for first? I know we talked about, what is the motivation behind putting out the study, but within the content.
Um, I'm going to look at the conflicts of interest. I'm going to look at who is funding the study, and then also have questions behind everything from there. Just because it's either big pharma, it's either a food company, or if it's a supplement or some sort of brand. So once I understand where this paper research is basically being funded by, I could have I could gauge the level of skepticism in terms of how much I want to believe in this paper that I'm reading.
Sure. And what types of study are common in this area that you've seen?
If I'm going to look for reputable sources, I'm going to go PubMed, Nature Magazine. Most of the time when I'm looking for papers, I'm going on Google Scholar,
Sure.
and I'm basically I'm putting in the filters that I need, and I basically go from there. I try not to believe everything I read at first, because I want to basically read a variety of papers with around that topic that I'm searching for, and see if there's any similarities, at the same time patterns. And then I could go from there. It's a lot of work,
Yeah.
but at the same time, we can't. I feel that the consumer has become lazy, where they just want the answers right away. But sometimes the right answer isn't the correct. The answer that you're seeking is basically just fulfilling what you believe in,
Hmm.
and you're doing yourself injustice, just because what you believe in is incorrect, you're not allowing any bias to basically persuade yourself.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That unconscious bias bit, I think and it is very much unconscious. There are people who don't know, but then there's also people who, like you said, the due diligence is not happening on
Correct.
doing the research.
Correct. It's like I
So,
used to be at the type where I was like, I need to eat high protein. I need to reduce my carbohydrates. In a sense, that's correct, but at the same time, there wasn't much balance.
sure.
Um, I've done keto, I've done vegan, I've done so many different diets, where what I've noticed that over all these diets, the thing that my body craves is a majority plant based with some meats,
Hmm.
but everything within moderation. But I try to keep my plate as colorful as I can.
Yeah. And I think, you know, it's a very common conversation online right now of all these different types of diets and what's best for, you personally and things like that. And that also comes with a bunch of headlines that are maybe doom and gloom,
Mhm.
maybe they're not. What do you interpret the relative risk increases with ultra processed foods versus an absolute risk?
The relative risk is fairly high, just because when you're looking at relative risk, you have to also look at the overall picture of the individual. Um, at the same time, not every product is at the same level of any other product.
Sure.
Um, the amount that you consume, the quality of products that you consume, it could be a fair balance, or it could basically tilt it over to one side even more. Um, the risk is just really it's a very complex question, just because every person is individual.
Sure.
Every person, especially in the US, we have a very mixed culture where everybody consumes things in different quantities and levels. And there's a lot of a net loss as well as a net positive, where you can be consuming this where you think it's healthy, but then you're basically canceling that out with something else.
Yeah.
And I feel that I easily do that, just because like we're human. Is like, if you like something, you're gonna overindulge.
Yeah.
And then we always have that reactive mentality where it's like, oh gosh, I ate too much of this. I'm going to run on the treadmill for an hour. But that doesn't really do much.
Yes. Yeah, totally. Are there red flags that tell you a headline is maybe overstating or, you know, being maybe a little bit overly dramatic just to get eyes?
I feel that if it's a trend in culture, I feel that it's a red flag. Um, I would like to have comparative studies and data to just understand how this data changed and why. And I would like to have an understanding of why it changed. Uh, Me reading a headline with this information, but with no context behind it, I'm skeptic now.
Yeah, makes sense. I feel like that context piece obviously is so important. And how do you separate a statistically significant finding from one that's clinically meaningful?
Ooh, that's a hard one. Well, clinically significant, I think it's more more than or less than 0.05%, correct?
Yeah,
Um, I'm gonna have to come back to
that's
that
fine. That's
one.
totally fine. How about we go? So you work in IT, right?
So my last role was a Salesforce consultant,
Okay.
and then before that, I came from medical device, pharmaceuticals, and
Yeah.
oncology.
So you've got a little bit of a background in mixed of data and tech, a
Correct.
little
And
bit in
then
there.
before that, I was in dietary raw ingredient
Oh,
dietary.
okay,
So
perfect.
I was in the supplement industry.
I didn't even know that part. I knew a little bit about the tech. So I guess curious, thinking about data integrity, how do you think about correlation versus causation in some of these nutrition studies?
Um, I feel that a lot of these studies are basically just crap.
Yeah,
Just because they are being done not by academic institutions, but by just third-party research
right.
companies.
Yeah.
Where when you hire a third-party company, that company is basically paying the bill. So how can I really truly understand at the same time believe that data that is coming off of this, where there's nothing I could basically verify?
Yeah.
If it's coming from an academic institution, there's a little bit more credibility, but then you still have to have a healthy dose of skepticism as well.
Yeah.
But the sad part about food and dietary supplements, there is no money in that, where no no academic institution will fund it. That's why they have to look at these private brands.
Hmm.
But then these private brands are basically self-interested, so
Right.
they'll basically just put whatever they want
Yeah.
and allow the consumer. They'll see a percentage and, oh, I should buy this product. But all they're doing is you're basically paying for the market.
Yeah. Yep. And so they're biased
Correct.
inherently. Yeah. Absolutely. And are there other valuables that make this area specifically complicated to study?
But it's not regulated.
Yeah.
The dietary supplement market is not regulated until someone dies or enough people die. And even when somebody dies, the FDA is not going to put any resources to that dietary supplement because they have all these drugs to look at.
Yeah.
So that's the unfortunate thing about it. Until dietary supplements are regulated, which is not going to happen anytime soon. I used to be the type of person who consumed a lot of different dietary supplements because
Hmm.
of my cancer, just to make sure. But now I just try to get all those nutrients, phytochemicals, nutrients, vitamins, minerals from my food.
Yeah.
It's very taxing to the amount of food that I have to consume, but at least I know in raw form, I know what I'm getting.
Yeah. It's unfortunate that it does take such an effort,
Right.
right? To be able to do something like that. Um, I'm curious as well, you know, we talked about some of the biases, we talked about these other factors, but do you think ultra processed foods could also be a proxy for other lifestyle patterns? They're maybe causing illness as well.
Yeah, I do believe that, just because when we look at, let's just the bodybuilding culture.
Sure.
We have a lot of issues with vanity and then body dysmorphia.
Yeah.
I think I read I think I read something where men are more common to have more body dysmorphia more than women
Wow.
nowadays. So I found that very interesting.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, a lot of these social media influencers, you automatically see them taking one or two scoops of pre-workout and just putting a little water in there. I was like, that is not good. Just the sheer amount of caffeine in that scoop. At the same time, all these other things that are in that dietary supplement are not good for you.
Yeah.
We've seen in recent news findings where someone would drink several energy drinks a day and their kidneys would fail.
Right.
They would have jaundice, or some of them have paid the ultimate price and died.
Yeah.
So it's trends like this that create very dangerous habits.
Yeah.
Um, but And then now we're looking at the GLP-1s where people
Yes.
don't want to put in the work, where they'll get on a GLP-1, they won't exercise, they won't change any of their habits, they lose the weight, but then they have less than half of the muscle that they had even before. So that basically caused other issues where they may have bone loss and all these other things that could basically compound later.
Yeah. Yeah. It's sad and scary how much diet is a trend
Mhm.
versus,
Lifestyle.
a lifestyle. Yeah. And just taking care of yourself. Um, and it's, yeah, like you said, with GLP-1s, I feel like the conversation is huge right now. Very much so. Um, when you're looking at these studies, knowing everything that we've just talked about, how confident can we realistically be looking at them for long-term data?
Ooh, that's hard. Not very confident, just
Yeah.
because these studies will basically go by interests of the mass.
Mhm.
If it's no longer popular, these people might not get funding anymore.
Yeah.
These companies may go under. They're just going to find the new hot product that they need to create so they could sell and stay alive.
Yeah. How should everyday people respond when they see an alarming headline?
Pause and really think about it. Don't assume. Fact check everything. People say that they don't have time, but majority of people are consumed on their phone hours a day. So you have time.
Yeah.
You just don't prioritize verifying information.
Yeah. What ways do you go about verifying information?
I'll go to Google Scholar.
Mhm.
I use anecdotal experience
Sure.
and just use myself as a test subject and go from there. Just because we are all individuals in how we respond to any treatment, any regimen, any diet, any workout routine. And you're the ultimate decision maker as well as test subject in terms of how well something works.
Yeah.
Um, it's a little bit of work again, but if you're your own test subject, you could basically take pictures of before and afters. You could basically get blood work that you get from your doctor. The benefit of me is like I always have to get blood work almost every month.
Great.
So I could have those markers that I need to basically monitor. So it's a little easier for me because I'm an active cancer patient. But the typical person, well, you have access to a PCP, so you could probably just request it.
Sure.
But I just feel that the accountability of an individual as a whole is no longer there.
Mm. Yeah. We we really have become very separated from our food and our nutrition in so many ways. Um, I You kind of talked a little bit about the sources and headlines that are more biased. They're driven by these, maybe third party studies. And then also Google Scholar, PubMed, these other sources. What does responsible science communication look like to you?
That's a hard question just because you have self-interested parties that are constantly funding these scientific researches.
Yeah.
It's it's hard as a researcher because you need funding somehow.
Yeah.
And to have grassroots efforts from a philanthropist or a high wealth individual that is curious about this information is very hard to find. And that's where the data that comes out of these studies is very questionable because they're basically just giving what the researcher kind of wants. I've gotten to a point where I really don't look into that anymore. I know that eating as many plants as possible will only do what good for me. Eating less meats and less processed foods, same thing. It's going to just do good for me. Drinking more water, moving, the things that we can control will basically allow us to live life better.
Yeah.
So I was like, we try to make things so complicated nowadays where what what our parents have done or what our parents, their parents have done was just basically work hard at something.
Yeah.
Um, at the same time, foods today, plants, vegetables, they have less than 50% of the nutrients that they had before. So we have to consume 2 to 3 times more of those plants to get what they were before. And there are certain things where you could replace certain phytonutrients with vitamins and minerals, but you always want to make sure that it's a high quality grade supplement.
Yeah.
So USP grade is a great standard to basically follow where you're getting a grade of supplement that has been tested and vetted. Whereas a lot of these new supplement companies have all these promises that they tell their people, and it's just who's verifying it.
Yeah.
So that's why I was like, I take a multivitamin, take a fish oil, and vitamin D. That's all I
Yeah.
take now.
Yeah.
Everything else I'm just getting from food.
Yeah. I like that kind of like, you control the controllables. Like
Cool.
you can do what you can do. I think that's also because so many of these headlines I think incite fear in many people. And having an outlook where it's like, okay, this is what I can control and
Mm.
this is what I can do. And just owning that is much more manageable than trying to think of, you know, the almost infinite amount of information that may be coming your way in any given day, especially like you said, when we're on our phones
Mhm.
all the time.
But I also think that we as individuals put too much pressure on ourselves now.
Yeah.
I was like, just focus on yourself and don't care about what others are thinking. Um, Cancer has allowed me to do that so much more, and it's made me so much happier.
Yeah.
I don't care what people think of me anymore. The way I eat may be weird to people, but hey, it's kept me alive to this point. I'm able to physically do what I want to do,
Yeah.
and I'm alive. So that's what counts to me.
Absolutely. I am curious if, from everything that you see online or that you've reviewed, is there anything that feels like legitimate signals that people should be paying attention to?
Moving,
Mhm.
drinking more water, community, talking, mental health. I'm very happy that mental health is becoming a bigger subject now.
Yeah.
Just because, especially within the category of men, um, men are basically told to suck it up and not talk about things. But that's created so much havoc within society where if they actually step back and found a community of people that they trust and who they could talk to, things would be a lot better.
Yeah. And who do you find community with?
So I'm part of an organization called Man Up to Cancer. So it does help having another survivor by your side, being able to talk to and just basically relate to you.
Yeah.
My parents, my family, my friends, they're great support, but they just don't understand what I'm going through.
Right.
And I always tell people that they could have they have sympathy for you, but to have true empathy, you have to talk to a person or individual that understands and has gone through what you have gone through.
Right. Yeah. The Man Up to Cancer guys are great. We've talked to them before. We had them on the podcast, and um, I think you're so right that that point about like men supporting each other
Mhm.
is so key because we have a lot of listeners. To be honest, many of them are women, and just in healthcare in general, I think you see a lot fewer of those conversations as it relates to men's health, men's mental health, and that piece. So that community aspect is like so key. Um, absolutely. And, you know, unfortunately, this year, it was announced that colorectal cancer rates are rising in young adults once again,
Mhm.
where they had projected we'd be at 2030. We're now here in 2026 as the top cancer killer for millennials. How do you think millennials should contextualize studies and information about ultra processed foods
It's a warning
in line with
sign.
it?
It's honestly a warning sign just because we are past the conversation where you're too young to have this cancer. I was diagnosed at the age of 33 and my GP brushed me off.
Yeah.
And thank God I advocated for myself because I got the answers I needed. But the medical gaslighting is something that deters a lot of people, but at the same time is very dangerous because it's creating this surge in death with males and females dying from colorectal cancer.
Yeah. Yeah, that self-advocacy part is a story that we hear over and over again. People having to go back constantly and push for what they feel they need because the gaslighting or just the denial of physicians. What would you say is a rational response versus maybe an overreaction when you're consuming this kind of news? Whether it's about ultra processed foods or any kind of study related to health.
A rational question, if it's coming from an individual or company, is can you tell me more? And how did you come to this conclusion of your data?
Yeah.
The irrational is what you're saying is false and it's bullshit. Um, that's just basically creating an argument at
Sure.
the same time creating your own bias against the other person. Coming in with a curiosity mindset allows that individual to prove what they said. And if they aren't able to prove it, that also allows them to question themselves.
Mhm. And do you have a framework that you use to evaluate studies or headlines when you see them come through
I,
that others could leverage?
I just don't believe it now. I was like, I try not to turn on the TV because it's all trash now.
Yeah.
Um, I would rather just go by the common knowledge that you need more plants, you need less processed foods, you
Mhm.
need less dairy, you need less meat, and you need more movement. That's all you need.
Yeah.
Um, it's not hard. And then I always hear from individuals that say, "Well, I can't eat that many vegetables because it's too expensive." I was like, "No, it isn't." I was like, when you look at your supermarket bill, when you're going to the store, a majority of your cost is going to proteins.
Mhm.
So if you look at alternative protein sources, you could actually save a lot of money. You could buy different beans where they're pennies on the dollar. You could still have your meat, but just in a smaller portion. You could have cruciferous greens. You could have other green or other vegetables. So basically, fill that plate, and
Yeah.
then you can have your grains. A lot of people don't want to explore the different grains. People just normally get white rice or brown rice. But there's barley, there's farro, there's sorghum. There's so many different options out there that you could basically look at and just have a variety of. I didn't truly understand the variety until I went vegan, and then I got tired of eating the same
Yeah.
meal every day. So when I started exploring the supermarket and I saw different varieties of, I would go to an Asian market, I would go to a Hispanic market, I would see the different choices
Yeah.
and just be curious. I was like, oh, let's try cooking with this. And that opened my eyes to flavor, color, and then just differences in dishes that it can make.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not, like you said, it doesn't have to be a cost thing. And I think even ultra processed foods can be quite expensive.
Correct. It's like, but I feel that people just want to use that as a automatic response
Yeah.
where it doesn't need to be that way.
Hmm.
Um, People are predispositioned to try to eat like the other person that they envy. And sometimes that's not that's not possible. As
Yeah.
like every individual has a different circumstance.
Yeah.
And you need to adapt to what you can do, afford, and keep consistent with. Just
Yeah.
because a lot of people who go into exercise programs or diets, they focus on intensity.
Hmm.
Whereas I focus on consistency just because it's easier to, if you're consistent, you're going to be more successful.
Yeah.
You may not get the results as fast as you want, but at least you're basically building a routine and habit where you will have greater success in the long run.
Yeah. We did an episode recently about um, vegetarian and vegan diets, and one of the things that we talked about was like, it doesn't have to be an all or nothing right away.
Yeah.
You can ease into it. It doesn't have to be like, okay, as of today, I'm cutting out all meat and I'm doing, all vegetables and fruits. Like it doesn't have to be that, and people can give and take. And I think that's important. Like you said, everybody's an individual. You find the balance that works for you and your lifestyle.
Yeah, I was like, when I went vegetarian, I was like, the hardest thing for me to give up was cheese and eggs. Oh my God, eggs were
Yeah.
so hard.
Yeah.
I was like, I eventually got there, and then I went vegan. And then over time, I was like, I miss meat. I want to eat a cow.
Yeah.
I was like, it's totally normal. I was like, but I'm not gonna beat myself up about it.
Right.
But I was like, I'm still eating majority plants, but now I have a sprinkle of a cow, chicken, a pig.
Yeah.
I was like, but it's not the end of the world either.
Right.
I was like, having cancer, you try to your hardest to stay alive, but then you forget to live.
Mm. Yeah. That's wow. I feel like that is so in line with some of the other conversations that we've had with some of the other, patients and survivors, a little bit about caregivers as well, talking about the family members or loved ones that they're working with. Um, I'm curious, you know, I feel like you're coming to this with such a healthy dose of skepticism and understanding. What do you what gives you hope? What do you tell to people who are looking at all of this information that's coming in that's negative?
The thing that gives me hope is just knowing the fact that we live in a time where medical advancement comes so fast. There is a regulatory process that does delay things, but it's delayed due to the fact of just keeping you safe.
Yeah.
Um, I have a cancer where every treatment that I will be on will eventually fail. But I had to reframe things where before there was only 4 options, and now I'm on my 9th line of treatment. So I've had 5 additional options due to medical advances. So I had to reframe it where I get to have another option,
Yeah.
but at the same time, it's also helped me become more mindful of what's in front of me where, you know what, it's like I'm getting every day is a second chance and it's a present.
Mhm.
But at the same time, it's also another opportunity to become the person I want to be.
Mhm. Yeah. If someone wants to become more literate in research and just in their health decisions, where do you think they should start?
Start within their circle. Think about an individual that they deem successful at what they want to achieve. You could start with that one individual because you already have a connection with that person. And as human beings, we want to help one another.
Yeah.
So they probably most likely won't brush you off.
Yeah.
From there, after you've learned what you can from that individual, look at what you learned at and see what didn't work for you and move from there. And then find another individual that is on another level and go from there. Going, I look at the influencers out there. A lot of them are young, and the way I see it is like, if you're below the age of 30 and you look good, great. But I would love for to see if you could do that with a family, with a job, with with cancer, and if you could do all that, you have credibility in my mind for me to basically mimic what you're doing.
Yeah.
But if majority of people don't do that, they live their life around that because they don't have all the other priorities that a person like I have.
Yeah.
So that's how I basically view it. If you haven't achieved the success that I want with all the hurdles and challenges that I have, then I probably won't need to listen to you.
Yeah.
You have no credibility in my eyes.
Yeah. We've talked about a lot today. I just want to ask you one last question. If there's one takeaway someone has from listening to today's episode, what do you want it to be?
You have accountability for both your mental and your physical health. No one will save you. So stop relying on others to do it for you and just get your hands dirty.
Yeah. Well, Bill, thank you so much for being on the podcast. This has been amazing. If people want to learn more about you, where can they find you?
They could message me on Instagram, NEC Bill T, so NECBILLT. Or you could basically, if you are a cancer patient that's a man, join the platform. I lead the AYA, I lead the diversity, and I lead the Texas chapter.
This is for Man Up to Cancer, right?
Correct.
Great.
I am the director of diversity. So my
Perfect.
focus is to increase the reach to our AYAs as well as our men of color.
I love that. Perfect. Well, thank you again for being on the podcast. Thank you, everybody who's listening today. Please stay tuned for more of our colorectal cancer content here with Fight CRC, and we will see you in the next one.